Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. And today we're tackling a topic that I think is relevant to so many of us, and that's how having kids impacts the partnership.
Yeah, this is a big one for sure.
It's one of those things, I think, where a lot of times when you are expecting a baby, the focus really is on preparing for the baby and all of the things that go with that.
The stuff.
The stuff, yeah, exactly. But maybe not so much on, okay, how's this going to fundamentally change our relationship with each other and how we operate as a couple?
Yeah, definitely not enough focus there.
So to really dig into this, we brought together a pretty diverse mix of sources for this one. We have a review of this book, How Not to Hate Your Husband After Kids, and that's by Curious Mamas. Also some editorial perspectives from Thalia and Amazon.de, so we'll get kind of like a more European perspective on this as well.
Cool.
We also have some really honest conversations from Reddit. So we went to the Famatia/parenting subreddit to see what folks were saying there.
Oh boy,
Oh boy is right.
that's always a fun place.
Always enlightening. We also have some insights from a marriage and family therapist. So we'll get the clinical perspective,
Nice.
and we'll also look at what readers on Goodreads are saying. So
Yeah.
it's a whole bunch of different voices coming together here. And our mission, I guess I'd say, is to try to extract some actionable insights and different perspectives on how couples can navigate this really kind of tricky time and hopefully come out stronger on the other side.
I love that mission.
All right, so should we just dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so right off the bat, reading through these sources, I think one of the things that was really evident was this central tension that the book addresses, and it's this idea of this white-hot fury that new mothers can experience towards their partners, and it's often because of the feeling of just carrying a much heavier load when it comes to the household and the baby.
Yes, and I think Amazon.de really hit the nail on the head when they pointed out how much focus there is pre-baby, on the nursery and all the
Oh yeah, all the stuff.
all the stuff, all the cute clothes. Yeah, and so little on how this little tiny human will fundamentally rock the boat of the two of you.
Yeah, rock the boat big time.
Yeah, and that's something we don't really talk about enough, I don't think.
No, we really don't.
Because it's not cute, setting up the nursery.
Right, it's not the fun part.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with what seems to be the core issue here. And the Curious Mamas review, along with a lot of the discussions happening on Reddit and Goodreads, they all kind of come back to this idea of imbalance in the division of labor in the house, who's doing what.
Yeah, it's not just about being busy. It's about a real disparity in the types of work and the amount of work.
And I think what's interesting, too, is that this is happening even when both partners are working similar hours at their jobs outside the home.
Right, it's on top of it all.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're coming home and you're still doing a second shift, essentially.
Yeah, it's double the work.
Yeah. And so understandably, this is going to lead to resentment and tension in the partnership because it's just not fair.
Absolutely, and it's at the end of the day, this is your partner, this is your teammate, and if you don't feel supported or seen or, you're carrying this weight, it's going to erode the foundation of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's not just about fairness. It's about can this relationship even survive this kind of intense pressure?
Exactly.
And so I think this is where it's helpful to look at some of the specifics that we found. And one Goodreads reviewer mentioned this Ohio State study. And I thought this was just a great example of, it's not just people complaining, it's actual data that supports this idea. And they found that by the time the baby is 9 months old, women are doing about 37 hours a week of childcare and housework.
37?
37.
Oh my goodness.
While men are doing 24.
Okay, that's a significant difference.
Right, it's a difference of over 10 hours a week.
That's a part-time job.
Right, it's a whole other job, essentially.
Yeah, and you know what else is interesting? It's not just the amount, it's the type of work, dads tend to do more of the fun stuff.
Right.
Playing with the baby and reading and, the stuff that is enjoyable.
Right.
Whereas moms are often left with, the never-ending laundry, the dishes, the, constantly cleaning up.
The invisible labor, too, right?
Yes, all the mental load of keeping everything running. It's just,
Right.
it's a lot, and it's thankless.
So you can see how that would breed resentment, for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think on Reddit, you see a lot of people echoing that, I'm feeling like a single married parent. Which is what a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, it's you're in it, but you're not,
And there's this real sense of frustration of my partner's not stepping up. They're not being an equal. They're just waiting for me to tell them what to do.
Yeah, it's they're not a partner. They're another child.
Right.
That you have to manage.
Exactly. And one of those insightful things I saw on Reddit was this term weaponized incompetence.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just brilliant.
It's so true.
And it's this idea that someone will feign inability to do something to get out of doing it. So it's
Right.
like, oh, I don't know how to fold the laundry the right way, or I don't know how to make the bottles, or, whatever it is.
Yeah. Or like, I'll just mess it up, so you might as well just do it.
Right, exactly. And then the other partner's like, well, I guess I have to do it then because you can't do it right or whatever.
Then it's so frustrating because you know they're capable.
Right. It's not like they can't do it. It's just that they're choosing not to do it by playing dumb, essentially.
Exactly. And that is a form of manipulation, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, it's definitely not a healthy dynamic.
Yeah.
And then the Amazon.de description also brought up this point about how mothers often end up becoming like the default expert on all things baby.
Right.
And it's not because they necessarily like knew this stuff coming in. It's just that because they're the ones doing it all, they're the ones that are gaining all the experience.
Right. They're the ones figuring it out, so they become the go-to person for everything.
Right. And so it just reinforces this imbalance even more because then it's like, well, you know how to do it, so you should just keep doing it.
Yeah, and it's exhausting to be the export on everything.
Absolutely.
It's like, can I just not know for once?
Right. Exactly.
And just be like, I don't know, ask the other parent.
or just figure it out together.
Yeah,
Like, why do I have to be the one that always has the answers?
exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the problem, this like really fundamental core issue of like unequal labor and the resentment that causes. What are some things that couples can do to try to navigate this?
Well, the good news is that our sources offer some really practical advice.
Okay, good, because I was feeling a little bit hopeless there for a second.
No, there's hope.
Okay, good.
There's always hope. So the Curious Mamas review, they highlight that the book really focuses on like actionable recommendations. And a lot of them have both like paid and free alternatives, which is awesome because not everyone has the same financial resources.
Right, that's a really good point.
So one concrete strategy they mention is all about automating chores. And they use this weekday-based mnemonic device,
Oh, interesting.
which I think is so helpful to kind of break it down.
Yeah, it makes it seem less overwhelming, I think.
Right.
If you could be like, okay, today I just have to focus on this one thing.
Totally. So it's like
Uh-huh.
Monday is for meal planning and grocery shopping.
Oh,
Tuesday is for tidying up and decluttering.
like getting rid of stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
purging all the stuff that's accumulating.
I like that.
Wednesday is so laundry dishes, cleaning the bathroom, whatever kind of washing needs to happen.
Washing Wednesday?
Washing Wednesday, love it.
Okay, I'm into it.
Then Thursday is carved out for together time.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, intentionally making space for connection because, that can easily fall by the wayside. So important.
Yeah, and then Friday is for weekend planning. So like what's happening? Are we going anywhere? Do we need childcare? All that stuff. And then also catching up on anything that got missed during the week.
That makes a lot of sense.
So it's just a way to kind of like break it down and have a system.
Yeah, I think having a system is so important.
Absolutely, because otherwise it just feels chaotic.
Right, and you just end up feeling resentful because you're the one who's always having to think about it and plan it.
Exactly.
So, okay, I like that system. I'm going to try to implement that myself.
Try it out.
The book also recommends like additional resources for like specific challenges that couples might be facing. So Curious Mom has mentioned the 5 love languages, which I think we've all heard of.
Oh, yeah, classic.
And that's all about like improving communication and feeling understood and appreciated.
So important.
And then there's also simplicity parenting, which is about like managing all the stuff that comes with kids, like the toys, the clothes, all of it.
It's never ending. It's never ending. And it can feel really overwhelming, especially if you're someone who values like a minimalist or like a tidy space.
Right. Or if you just don't have a lot of space to begin with.
Right, exactly. And then the other book that they recommended was The Art of Possibility. And that one's all about like reframing your perspective on things.
Oh, cool.
So like helping you see the positive even when things are really challenging.
I like that.
So it's a more kind of like mindset-based book.
Totally.
Yeah, so I think the book is really good at like not just identifying the problem, but also like pointing you in the direction of some solutions.
Yeah, like here are some tools you can use
Exactly.
to actually tackle this.
So shifting gears a little bit, we have the Marriage and Family Therapist Review, and they offer a different kind of advice.
Yeah.
It's more about like the dynamics of the relationship itself.
Right, like how do you interact with each other?
Exactly. And one of the things they said that I thought was really interesting was let him screw up.
Oh, I love that.
So the idea is like you have to give your partner space to learn and make mistakes and figure out their own way of doing things without you constantly hovering over them and like criticizing or correcting.
Yes, because otherwise they never develop their own confidence or competence.
Right. And it kind of reinforces that expert-apprentice dynamic, which we talked about earlier, where like one person is always the expert and the other person is always the student.
And it's so easy to fall into that trap.
Right. Because you're just trying to like get things done.
Right, exactly.
And you know how to do it. So you're like, well, I'll just do it myself. But it's really important to step back and be like, okay, even if it's not done perfectly the way I would do it,
Right.
it's still valuable for my partner to learn how to do it themselves.
And for the child, to have that bond with both parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, letting them screw up. It's hard, but it's important.
Yeah, it's a good reminder.
Another great tip from the therapist was to stay on your own side.
What does that mean?
So it's about advocating for your own needs in a clear and direct way. So instead of like silently fuming about all the things you're doing.
And building up resentment.
Yes, exactly.
You have to actually like speak up and say, hey, this isn't working for me.
Right, and have regular conversations about how to divide the chores based on your preferences.
So like maybe one person really hates doing laundry.
Right, but they're happy to cook.
And the other person's like, I'd rather do laundry all day than have to cook dinner.
Yeah, exactly. So find those things that work for both of you.
And like acknowledge that it's okay to have different preferences.
Exactly.
And then the other thing they talked about was the half day off.
Oh, yeah.
And this is about carving out dedicated time on the weekends for each person to have like uninterrupted time away from childcare and household responsibilities.
Like a true break
a real break.
where you can recharge and be a human.
Yes. And I think that's so important because if you're both just constantly on,
Yeah,
you're going to get burnt out and resentful.
absolutely.
And that's not good for anyone.
So yeah, the half day off is crucial.
Yeah. I like that.
And even something like intimacy, they said you have to be intentional about it because it's so easy to let that slide when you're exhausted and you have a baby.
And you're just touched out all the time
Oh, yeah.
from like taking care of the baby.
It's real.
And so they actually talked about how research shows that there's kind of like a sweet spot for sexual intimacy in a relationship. And it's about once a week for like 7 to 13 minutes.
Interesting.
And so even though it might sound unromantic, they actually recommend like scheduling it in.
Just put it on the calendar.
Put it in the calendar and be like, okay, this is our time.
Because otherwise it just doesn't happen.
Right. And I think that's a really valuable piece of advice because it acknowledges that like time and energy are limited.
Right. It's not like you have endless amounts of either.
And so you have to be really intentional about how you're using those resources.
Exactly.
And then the last thing the therapist talked about was the importance of like learning how to fight fair.
Oh, yeah, big one.
Because conflict is inevitable in any relationship.
Especially when you add kids to the mix.
Right, exactly. And so they talked about these two really common destructive patterns that a lot of couples fall into. And one is demand withdrawal.
Oh, yeah.
Which is where one partner is trying to engage, the other partner is like shutting down and withdrawing.
And it creates this like vicious cycle.
Right. And it just escalates the conflict.
And then the other one is stonewalling.
Right.
Where someone just like completely shuts down and refuses to engage at all.
Like a brick wall.
Literally a brick wall.
And the therapist said that both of these are actually like really strong predictors of divorce.
Wow. So these are serious.
Yeah. They're not just like annoying habits. They're actually like warning signs
Yeah.
that something's not right in the relationship.
So it's important to recognize these patterns and then try to find healthier ways of communicating.
Yeah, like maybe taking a break from the conversation.
Right.
If things are getting too heated.
Or like learning how to express your needs in a way that doesn't feel attacking.
Right?
There's a lot of resources out there
Yeah.
for couples communication.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you're struggling with that, reach out for help.
Okay, so those are some really valuable insights from the therapist. And now let's talk about Reddit, because Reddit is always a good source of like real world,
Yeah.
unfiltered perspectives.
You're going to get the real deal on Reddit.
The real deal. So one recurring piece of advice that I saw on Reddit was just leave.
Leave.
Like leave the house
Oh,
and let your partner handle things on their own.
interesting.
And the reasoning behind this was that sometimes the only way for the other partner to really understand like what you're going through and to develop their own confidence and competence is to have to do it themselves without you there to like step in and fix it or like tell them what to do.
Yeah, like sink or swim.
Sink or swim, exactly.
I could see how that would be effective.
Right. It's like tough love,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's necessary.
Sometimes you just got to rip off the Band-Aid.
Right, exactly.
Let them figure it out.
So if you're feeling like you're constantly having to micromanage,
Yeah.
maybe try stepping back and just like leaving for a few hours.
Yeah, go get a massage.
Right, exactly.
Anything to give them space to figure it out.
And then there are also some really practical tips that came up on Reddit that I thought were great. One was to set up like idiot-proof systems.
I love that.
So things that like anyone can do regardless of their level of experience or skill.
Right.
And meal kit delivery services were mentioned a lot as a way to like reduce the mental load of meal planning and cooking.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Because if you could just be like, okay, here's the box, here's the
It's
recipes,
all laid out for you.
anyone can do that.
Yeah, and then there's no excuse.
Right, exactly. So it's a way to like get your partner more involved in cooking without them feeling overwhelmed.
I like that.
And then another idea was to establish like dedicated responsibilities.
Hmm.
So for example, one parent always does bath time.
Okay.
The other parent always handles like the morning routine, or you trade off who gets to sleep in on the weekends.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so it just creates like clear expectations and it minimizes the need for like constant negotiation and reminders.
Right. It's like we each have our thing.
Right, exactly. And everyone knows what they're responsible for.
I like it.
Yeah. And then, of course, there was just a lot of venting on Reddit about feeling like a single married parent,
Oh, yeah.
which I think we've all been there.
Definitely.
And this idea of like, I just need my partner to step up and be a true partner, not someone who I have to constantly like instruct and direct.
It's exhausting to have to be the manager of everything.
It's so exhausting. And it just makes you feel so unappreciated.
Totally.
Because it's like, I'm doing all this work and you're just sitting there like waiting for me to tell you what to do.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling.
And then someone on Reddit had this like really simple but potentially impactful suggestion, which was to encourage your partner to read this book.
Oh, yeah.
Like actually read the book that we're discussing.
To get some perspective.
To get some perspective. And there was one dad on Reddit who said that he actually read the book. And it was really helpful for him to understand his wife's point of view.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so sometimes just like putting the information in front of them can be really helpful.
Yeah, sometimes they just don't know.
Right, they just don't get it.
And this book lays it out pretty clearly.
It does.
So yeah, make them read it.
Okay, so now I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the role of kids in all of this.
Interesting.
Because the book actually makes this really important point that children don't need constant undivided attention in order to learn and thrive.
Oh, that's good to know.
Right? Because I think as parents, especially new parents, there's this pressure to like entertain your kid 24/7.
Right, to be on all the time.
Right, and the book is saying like, actually, that's not necessary. And it can even be detrimental.
How so?
Because it doesn't give kids the space to like develop their own independence and creativity and problem-solving skills.
Right. They need time to explore and figure things out on their own.
Exactly. And so the book is advocating for this idea of like just letting kids be around while you're doing other things. So like if you're cooking dinner or folding laundry or whatever, the kids can be in the same room playing with their toys or reading or whatever, and they're learning from just observing you.
So they're still engaged with you, even if you're not like actively playing with them.
Right, exactly. And it's teaching them that like it's okay to be bored sometimes.
That's an important lesson.
It is, because I think a lot of us grew up with this idea that like boredom is bad and you always have to be doing something.
Right, and now we have all these screens to like constantly distract us.
Exactly. And so it's really important to teach kids that like it's okay to just sit and be with your thoughts.
Yeah, to just chill.
Yeah. And the Curious Mama's review also mentioned this research by Ellen Galinsky, who found that children actually value those small, consistent, everyday rituals and traditions more than like big elaborate events.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's like those little things that you do together as a family on a regular basis.
Like reading a bedtime story.
Right. Or having dinner together or going for a walk on Sunday morning.
Yeah, like those little moments.
Those little moments are actually more meaningful to kids than like going to Disneyland.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a good reminder that quality time doesn't have to be this huge production.
It's the little things.
It's the little things.
that matter most.
And then the book also talks about the importance of chores and how chores can actually teach kids really valuable life lessons.
Oh, yeah.
So as Curious Mamas pointed out, contributing to the household helps children understand their importance within the family unit, and it gives them a sense of responsibility.
Right. It makes them feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
Exactly. And a Goodreads reviewer kind of expanded on this and talked about how, like, in Montessori and Mayan parenting philosophies, children are encouraged to contribute to the household from a very young age.
Oh, wow.
Like it's just seen as like a natural part of being a member of the family.
Like a household membership requirement.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
And they also talked about how it's important to praise kids for being helpers.
Oh,
So not just like, oh, you did a good job, but like, thank you for being a helper.
right, because it reinforces that idea of like, we're all in this together.
Exactly.
I love that.
And then on a slightly less positive note, the Goodreads review also brought up this point about how sometimes gender bias can show up in childhood chores.
Oh, right.
So like boys might get paid more allowance than girls for doing the same chores.
That's not cool.
It's not cool, and it's like such a small thing, but it's actually like a really big deal because it's reinforcing those gender stereotypes from a very early age.
Right, and it's teaching boys that their work is more valuable than girls' work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's something to be really mindful of as parents.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the problem, the solutions, the role of kids.
Yeah.
What are some like final takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that this transition to parenthood, it's a huge shift and it's going to impact your partnership in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
but it's not all doom and gloom.
Right. There are things you could do to make it easier
Exactly.
and to come out stronger on the other side.
So one thing that all of our sources really emphasize is the importance of communication.
Yeah, like open, honest communication,
Right.
where you're able to express your needs and your feelings without fear of judgment.
Exactly. And listening to your partner's needs and feelings as well.
And being willing to compromise.
Yes. Compromise is key.
Because it's not going to be 50-50 all the time.
Right.
There are going to be times when one person has to pick up more of the slack.
But it should balance out over time.
Right, exactly. And it should feel like you're both in this together.
Yeah, you're a team.
A team. And then the other thing that I think is really important is to establish clear expectations for how responsibilities are going to be shared.
Yes, like have those conversations early on.
Before the baby even arrives.
Right, before you're both sleep deprived and overwhelmed.
Right, exactly. Because
Yeah.
once the baby comes, it's a lot harder to have those conversations.
Totally.
And it's important to remember that, like, it's okay if things aren't perfect.
Yeah, done is better than perfect.
Right. And so if your partner does something and it's not exactly the way you would have done it,
Right.
just let it go.
Let it go.
Unless it's like a safety issue or something.
Right.
But like if it's just like a matter of preference,
Yeah.
just let it be.
Because the fact that they're doing it at all is huge.
Right. It's a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
And then finally, I think it's really important to make a conscious effort to recognize and appreciate the contributions that your partner is making.
Yes, even the small things.
Even the small things, because I think it's so easy to get caught up in like what they're not doing.
Right. To focus on the negative.
Right. And to forget to like acknowledge the things that they are doing.
And a simple thank you can go a long way.
It really can.
It makes people feel seen and appreciated.
Right. And it helps to create a more positive dynamic in the relationship.
Exactly.
I think those are some really valuable takeaways from this deep dive.
Yeah, I think so too.
And we encourage you to take some time to reflect on your own relationship and how you're navigating this transition to parenthood.
Yeah, and think about what you can do to create a more equitable and supportive dynamic.
And to prevent yourself from like hating your partner after kids.
Yeah.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. What is one concrete small action that you can take this week to proactively cultivate that sense of partnership and prevent that potential resentment after kids, even if you're not in that stage right now?
That's a good question.
Yeah. What does a truly equitable and supportive partnership look like in the context of your life?
I love that.
That's something for you to ponder this week on the deep dive.
Until next time.
Bye, everyone.